Welcome to Passive Aggressive Income. This program may contain strong language. The content may not be suitable for audiences under the age of 17. We understand many of our listeners may not agree with all of our personal viewpoints. We in no way, shape, or form mean to be offensive to anyone. Our show notes will provide all of our source material included for each episode. Now let's get passive aggressive.
Hello and welcome back to Passive Aggressive Income. We're your hosts, Lexi and Mims. This week, we are talking about some book recommendations that we have. As you guys know, if you've been following this podcast, we are involved in a whole bunch of different things and talk about a wide variety of topics on this podcast. So we're just going to talk about some of the books that inspired us to get us where we are today. Talking about passive income, side hustles, pursuing our passions, entrepreneurship, all of the things. So we can jump in and get started recommending some books to you guys.
Yay. Okay, so I think that this is really great for our bookworms out there and people that are just really interested in learning from a whole bunch of different facets that come from passive income. So the first one we're going to talk about is real estate. Our favorite, I should say, well, my favorite, real estate books are, if they're not done correctly, they're pretty dry, but we have picked out some books that are really, really great that everybody should read before or, even as a current investor. So for this one is a no-brainer for me. Everyone should start off by reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lechter. So this is the book, like underline, go buy this book right now or download it or whatever you have to do to read or listen to it, because it just has so much perspective on how you should live your life and how you should get out of the, poor dad mentality, as the book kind of goes into. It is a phenomenal and a way to, just get started on this journey.
And you don't need to
Also,
be a dad to read this book. Like you can
oh
be
no,
a woman who is single and doesn't have kids. That's totally fair. It can apply to you too.
right, yeah, I guess the title is a little bit misleading, but it's just kind of like comparing two different types of people and two different types of mindsets. It's what it's getting to. So the next one is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It is a great book to jump into. It is not specific to building a real estate portfolio, but it helps prepare you for that type of mindset and going through that process. So it just really builds you as a person.
Yeah, it's a good way if you're doing anything sort of independently in entrepreneurship or real estate. I would recommend this book is just becoming like a more confident person in business in general.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
hmm and so then the next, I guess I have kind of a couple book recommendations under the real estate category. So if you've heard of Biggerpockets, they
Mhm.
have a podcast. They are really big in like the real estate sphere, and it's actually a big inspiration for how myself and my husband Alex got into real estate. Um,
Mhm.
their main book that I would recommend is Buy, Rehab, Rent, Refinance, Repeat,
Mhm.
and that's the Burr method. So this
Yep.
describes a method that both Mims and I follow with our real estate strategies. I would also recommend just pretty much any book that they've written.
Yeah.
The Multifamily Millionaire, Managing Rental Properties, or just check out your podcast if you're not a big reader, or download an ebook. All of these have really good tips depending on what strategy in real estate which direction you want to go in.
Yep. And there's tons of other books out there. These are just our favorite ones, as far as real estate and all the other ones that we are suggesting. Next, we're going to move on to, I am really passionate about making and creating and selling my own art, and I make resin jewelry. So I do that on the side. And this recommendation is Real Artists Don't Starve by Jeff Goins. I'm hoping I'm saying the last name correctly. And it is Wall Street's bestseller. In this book, he talks about how being creative isn't a hurdle. It is what sets you apart and how you as an artist of your craft can be successful. So it kind of says it in the title, Real Artists Don't Starve. So basically it's getting at, if you're an artist, you don't have to struggle, because here are the tips on, how to promote yourself and how to get your brand out there. Then there is the New York Times bestseller, The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. A lot of Rick Rubin's uh, content and books are really great and highly recommended by a few people. So Rick Rubin is the way to go, apparently. But in this book, it focuses on creation and creativity and how to hone in on that.
I think this is a really good recommendation if you have like a side hustle, like Mims has the Mabo project where
Mm-hmm.
she's, making resin jewelry. If that's something that you're interested in, whether it's making jewelry or, maybe you paint or you do some sort of creative outlet that you want to earn passive income on, I think this is a good recommendation.
Yeah. Next, we're going to be talking about photography. This falls under Lexi's umbrella of what she likes to do. So I've come across personally the Why People Photograph by Robert Adams and its collective essays on why art is important. My next recommendation is one of my personal favorites. It's Drunk Street Photography by Ruben Preciado. All of the pictures in the book are really fascinating to look at and could really inspire anybody to pick up a camera, especially me. I am not really good at taking pictures. I have a hard time taking pictures of myself, but selfie wise. So, but it makes me want to, take to the streets and just, point a camera at anything that I think is interesting. So it's a really fun and awesome book to just look at.
Yeah, these are really interesting because I'm going to admit something. I
Mm-hmm.
really dislike nonfiction. I love a good fiction book. I love a story.
Yeah.
Rom-coms especially, they get me. So I have a hard time reading nonfiction, but I love to read.
Yeah.
But I think something like this could really like speak to me, and
Yeah.
like hearing your recommendation makes me want to pick up these books.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's where people go wrong when they do informational types of books, is that it's so dry and it's so hard
Mhm.
to want to keep going, because at first when you pick it up, you are really excited to learn something new, or how to perfect your craft. And this book is highly recommended, but after you get or after you lose that first motivation to pick up this book and read it, it becomes really hard to continue reading it. So I definitely know what you mean by that, because I myself have really hard time sitting down just reading. I have to do audiobooks all the time. Otherwise, I can't sit still. That's my problem.
Yes, but hopefully this episode helps people who are like us, and
Mhm.
we're not going to recommend boring books. So,
No, no, we're not here for that. So next is social media. So Hook Point and 1 million followers by Brenan Kane is said to have outside of the box ways to stand out from the rest of the sea of content, or the sea of accounts on social media. I have heard Brenan Kane in the social media world a bunch of times, and his books have been, really successful and making other people successful on social media. So if you haven't found that interesting book to elevate your social media, I feel like Brenan Kane's these two books would really help you do that.
and also, in addition to that, check out our podcast episode from a few weeks ago where I talk about some social media strategies. So pair
Yeah,
those two and you'll be set.
plug away, girl. I love it. Okay, so next we're going to be talking about branding. We also did an episode on branding. Lexi did a really great job on encompassing everything that she knows in that episode. So if you haven't listened to that one, make sure to go back and listen to it. So my recommendation is Purple Cow, Transform Your Business by Being Remarkable by Seth Godin, is a book that focuses on how to lead businesses to success based on standing out. So a lot of these books is going to make you want to be your own person and do that creatively and true to your own nature and become like the person that you really want to be. So lastly, we are going to be talking about personal growth. So I think this is really important just for all aspects of your life, no matter what kind of uh, passive income or entrepreneurship or hustle that you're looking to get into. I think that these are the building blocks for that. So I am going to recommend Tools of Titans. And as we mentioned in previous episode, the Penny Pinchers Almanac. The Penny Pinchers Almanac is really just to help you be creative in savings. But the Tools of Titans is a really good book because it's basically a collective of different people that are successful in their own ways. So it's like a CrossFit trainer or a really notable and successful a surfer. It's all different types of people, and they sit down and they ask these people different questions on what they do on a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis, and how they became who they are today. It's a really, really good book. I highly suggest that you check it out.
And then sticking with the personal growth category, I'm going to recommend a couple of books here because this is kind of where I find myself. If I'm reading nonfiction, I'm typically in this category. I think that like improving the self is very important, and having the tools to do that it can be kind of hard. Like you can just kind of go through life and not really think about like how you're communicating or how to live in a different way. And I think reading these types of books is just important to get different perspectives. So a book that gave me a very different perspective and kind of transformed the way that I view the trajectory of my life is called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferris. He challenges how you live and work and how you look at happiness and what that means to you. And one of the concepts that I really like from this book is that you shouldn't wait until your like retirement age and potentially physically unwell to do the things in your life and go on adventures. And so he suggests taking like mini retirements throughout life.
Yeah, I love
which,
that.
Yeah, I think is super cool. And he also sort of challenges the goal that many people have to just become super rich and have a lot of fancy things and a big house, and material belongings don't really equal happiness. And that's something that I found has rung true with me a lot. And so I read this back in 2018, and both my husband Alex and I read it, and it kind of inspired us to get rid of like all of our belongings and travel around the world for 6 months. And this is a book that I want to read again because I think that was a really good refresher for me to just like go on adventures and not worry so much about like the 9 to 5.
Right. And also, so Tim Ferriss wrote this book, The 4-Hour Workweek, and he wrote The 4-Hour Body. And he's the one who wrote the Tools of Titans. So basically, his concept for Tools of Titans is people kept asking him if you were to rewrite the 4-Hour Workweek or the 4-Hour Body, what would you include now? And he wrote the Tools of Titans inspired by that question of all the things that he wanted to include, having now written it, that he didn't get to or he didn't think of into this book that is basically just a compilation of different people and how successful they are. So I think Tim Ferriss, no matter which book we could recommend, they're all pretty good.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I will definitely have to check out Tools of Titans because that was a really engaging book too. Like it was fun to read.
Yeah, and the fact that, for Tools of Titans, it's just different people and they make it fun. It's, a lot of them are direct quotes and they have fun with it and they ask them like, "Oh, what's your spirit animal?" So it's not really as dry as we're probably making it sound. I don't think I'm doing it justice by any means, but if you could look at the reviews on this book, I could guarantee you're going to like it.
Yeah, so that's one that I'm going to download for sure. And then the next book that I'm going to recommend is The Seven Principles of Making Marriage Work. This
Oh,
probably sounds super weird on this podcast of earning passive income, but so
oh,
much of it revolves around just having healthy relationships and healthy communication with everyone. And so
yeah.
yes, it's written from the lens of married couples, and it goes through a bunch of different examples in this study that they did of different couples and like how they communicate through life and if they stay together, if they don't stay together. But I feel like that can easily be applied to friendships, business
Mm-hmm.
relationships, all sorts of things. It's a book that Alex and I read together chapter by chapter every couple of
Oh,
years,
oh,
and I
you
think
guys.
but it's really like transformed the way that we communicate with each other and work through disagreements and things like that. So I think like anyone can benefit from reading this book.
I totally agree. And I love that this is one of your recommendations. I think that if you are married, having that, camp at home before you dive into things head first, into ventures is a really good support for you to have if it's good. You can do a lot of things with a partner that has your back, and strengthening that can only strengthen you in all other aspects of your life. So I really think that this is a good recommendation.
Thanks. Yeah, and especially if you're going into something like real estate or starting a business with your partner, then making sure that you know how to communicate through disagreements and through like difficult
Mm-hmm.
times is so important. And especially when you're
Mm-hmm.
involving other people in your ventures too, like it's super unprofessional if you don't know how to like talk to each other.
Right. And like you can't move forward on a specific project because your husband isn't on board or your wife isn't on board. And it's just like you need to be a team. And like you said, this is a good book for all aspects of that, of your life.
Yes. And similar, I guess, along the lines of the seven principles of making marriage work, I'm also going to recommend The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. This
Mm-hmm.
was actually one of the like very first self-help books that I read. And I will be honest, at times it can be a little bit dry, but
Mm-hmm.
there's some really good content in here. The book basically describes like a principle-based approach for solving personal and professional problems and how you communicate through them. So as you may have guessed by hearing my book recommendations, communication is something that's really important to me, and
Mm-hmm.
having healthy and open, clear communication is super important. So I've spent a lot of time researching how to do that, how to be an effective communicator. And like we talked about already, this goes beyond just your romantic relationships. This is really good for any type of venture that you go into when you have to work with other people, whether it be tenants or business partners or clients, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that this episode is going to be really helpful for people um, that love to read and not just listen to episodes of a podcast. A lot of people like to focus in and be present in that moment, and reading is something that they do that. So I think that this is going to be a really good episode for those types of people and other people that just want to learn. So I just want to do a quick run through of all the books that we have recommended, so that you guys don't forget. And also, we're going to put this in our show notes. And I've looked at all of these books online, and the majority of them can be purchased through Amazon or Audible. So if you are interested in these, go for that. Otherwise, a local bookstore is a really good way to support your local economy. Just be mindful of that too. So the books that we covered are Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, The Purple Cow, Transform Your Business by Being Remarkable by Seth Godin, Hook Point and 1 Million Followers by Brenan Kane, Drunk Street Photography by Ruben Preciado, Why People Photograph by Robert Adams, Real Artists Don't Starve by Jeff Goins, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lechter, Buy, Rehab, Rent, Refinance, Repeat by Biggerpockets. The Multifamily Millionaire by Biggerpockets. Managing Rental Properties by Biggerpockets. The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferris. The 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work, and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And that is a wrap on our book recommendation episode. We really hope that you enjoyed it and that you tune into our episode for next week. We're going to be talking about managing tenants. We're going to jump back into real estate for a little bit, for those that are interested in real estate or learning more about it. So we hope that you, like I said, like this one and stay tuned for next week's episode.
Yes, and let us know if you've read any of these books or if you have any other recommendations in any of these, like categories that we talked about, personal growth, entrepreneurship, real estate, etc. We're always wanting to learn too, so let us know and connect with us on social media.
Yeah, we are definitely interested in reading any other types of books that you think that we would like as well. So definitely message us on our social media platforms if you think that we would be interested in a book that you've read.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Passive Aggressive Income was written, recorded, edited, and produced by co-hosts and creators Mims and Lexi. We truly want to thank our listeners, collaborators, friends, and family that continuously support us for all the love we receive. If you enjoy our show, please give us a glowing rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, follow us on Facebook and Instagram to see what we are up to. For any inquiries, please email passiveaggressiveincome2023@gmail.com. Episodes of Passive Aggressive Income are available wherever you listen to podcasts, so make sure to subscribe and like us on your favorite streaming platform.